Hi there. So, bit of an update video here. It's been a few weeks, I'd say, since I did a video. This shirt is not cooperating with me. Yeah, I'm just gonna make a really brief, short video about anxiety again, and just gonna touch base with that and my own experiences that I've been having with some tools and some forms of therapy that I've been using on myself. If you have an anxiety disorder, if you want to call it that, or anxiety in general, I think one of the greatest things you can do is exposure therapy. Although this is taken from my own experience, but I believe that it has helped me a bit more. And I think that if I fully practice it and proceed with making it a habit to do an exposure therapy, then it will make me a little bit more comfortable with social situations. But you know what? It may not work for you, and try it out. There's no harm in trying, and then if it doesn't work for you, find another way, because there's always limitless amounts of opportunities to work on things. Yeah, I was meaning to make a video a little bit earlier, but it's really rowdy outside. It's really loud because there's the Italy-Germany soccer game today, or football, as you like to call it. Yeah, so that was a little bit difficult because I'm like filming near a window and you can hear all these people yelling and driving down the street and honking their horns. But it's really awesome to see that, and everybody's pretty happy with that. Even if you're not a fan of soccer, you kind of just feed off that, and it's just really enjoyable to be around. But yeah, anyways, anxiety. So, since my last video, I've been trying my hardest to put myself into situations where I can test that anxiety that I have. As I talked about before, I tend to have a lot of anxiety towards social situations, and whenever I'm placed in a social situation, that's when I find that my strongest anxiety occurs. And it's almost uncontrollable in the moment, but through certain techniques like breathing exercises and exposure therapy, I've been able to see my patterns and recognize the patterns, and not only recognize, but kind of formulate a plan either in the moment or afterwards to push forward past that wall. So yeah, there's anxiety can be really tough, and people who don't have it don't realize that it's not just worrying. Worrying and having anxiety for typical kind of mundane things in life is pretty normal. If you have anxiety for an interview you're about to go to and you have a new job, you're going to get nervous for that. Or if you have school the next day, you're starting a new class, you're going on a date, that's going to be obviously a pretty basic sort of anxiety that you'll have. And that's completely normal, but this is not just worrying. This is not just plain anxiety and then it subsides. This is like bordering almost an obsession, I guess. It's a habitual way of expressing your negative emotions, and it's not something that people with anxiety want to do, and it doesn't really necessarily subside as easy as typical worrying would. So there's a fine line between worrying and anxiety. Let me just check my time because I'm not sure. Yep, good. But yeah, there you go. So yeah, just to break it down, I'm going to adjust my camera. Okay, yeah, just to break it down, anxiety tends to affect people in many ways, on a cognitive level, on a behavioral level, and on a physical level. So I guess we can talk about physical first. When one is feeling overwhelmed by a state of anxiety, physically they will typically feel like their heart's racing out of their chest. It's just pounding straight. They're lost for words. For me personally, I feel like my throat gets really tightened and my voice changes a bit. It's not like, as bubbly and happy and whatever. It's not good times. It's not good times. I don't sound happy. And so you just get like heart palpitations sometimes, and I guess for some people you can easily read when somebody's having anxiety, but I tend to do my best to just hide it because I don't want people to know that I'm in an anxious situation. But yeah, so there's heart rate, there's well, I'm drawing blanks. Heart rate, I said that. And yeah, like sweating. You get really, sometimes some people get really like hot and sweaty. And then on a cognitive level, when we talk about that, you're having a repetition of thoughts that are not the most positive thoughts. It's like, I'm feeling anxious, I'm an anxious person, I'm really nervous right now, I can't control this anxiety, this is consuming me, I don't know what to do, I'm losing control, I'm going to fumble all my words and humiliate myself. And these aren't things that you can just kind of stop that easily unless you create a habit of breaking out of that pattern. And I think breath work is key. Breath work is so key. Meditation before you're going out somewhere and doing something that you know will typically cause anxiety for you will help a lot. And yeah, just breathing. Breathing techniques are essential for that. And just trying to relax. I know it's very hard in some situations when you're out with people to focus on your breath because you don't want to. So you're not going to count out loud of like. You're not going to be saying out loud like, oh, okay, gotta come down. Okay, Kat, you're good. Okay, I'm anxious right now, but I'm going to be okay. I'm anxious. Like, you don't want to say that out loud because obviously you're going to think people are thinking about you in a weird way, regardless, as much as you shouldn't care. But it can be tricky to talk to yourself in your head and work yourself out of that state of mind, but it is possible. Yeah, so I listed physical, cognitive, and behavioral. So behavioral, this is where it becomes a pattern. And patterns become very, very hard to break if they're learned for such a long time. If they're conditioned into your life, then they become a little bit more difficult to break out of. But they are, they are easy to break out. Well, they're not easy to break out with, but they are doable. So that's, when you start creating a habit of avoiding the situations that cause you fear. Going out in public, perhaps, going out in malls. I know I don't really like going out on the subway too much. If I don't have my MP3 player especially, I don't really like being around all these people. I find it very overwhelming hearing all the sounds and people talking and whatever. So yeah, there's that. There's avoidance of feared situations that elicit a certain response in you. And that sort of behavior can often act as a barrier because it distracts the person from reaching a positive state of mind because they're so consumed by it. Yeah, that's what I want to list off the bat. But what I've been doing as of my last video, I've been specifically putting myself in situations that aren't as desirable as they would be for most people. So, for example, if I'm going to a get-together or a party, I will make sure I go out of my way instead of people approaching me. So I will go up to them and be like, hey, how's it going? This is me. Who are you? Not in those exact words, obviously, but I'll introduce myself and try to compliment them on something without sounding too, overdone. Yeah, just like communicating with people in a genuine way and trying to just put yourself out there. And even if it's not in a group dynamic with friends or new people at a party, even if, let's say, on the street, you're walking down the street, say hi to somebody, good morning. I did that a few times. I've been slacking on that a bit. I'm going to try to do that more because I think it's kind of nice to do. People don't expect you to say hi to them, so it might brighten up their day, but it's also helpful for me too. And I think, yeah, so making yourself go out more often, as much as it sucks, especially if you already feel like you're an introverted person and you don't feel like you need to be around people all the time, that's okay. But if you're an anxious person and you know you want to heal and you know that this is absolutely necessary for you to heal, then you should probably put yourself out there go out as often as you can, make connections. Even if you set a little tiny goal, like two times a week, go out. Maybe 2 times in the evening, or maybe go out once during the day, just for like 10 minutes, go for a walk, or anything goes, as long as you're progressing and setting a goal for yourself and then pushing beyond that goal and setting a new goal. Planning also helps, because often when you're unprepared and not planning something, the anxiety tends to become a little bit heightened. So planning whatever you're doing beforehand will help alleviate that. Can't speak English. This kind of sounds silly, but it's helpful to wear something that you really enjoy. If you have a specific outfit that you like that makes you feel confident or comfortable, wear that, because that will make you feel a little bit better about yourself when you're going out. It will restore confidence in yourself that you might feel that is lacking when you're placed in an anxious situation. And just like be comfortable with who you are. That's what I'm trying to do, and slowly but surely getting there. It's a long process, but I have no doubts that it's not going to happen, and it can be a difficult thing to think of, and every day seems like a struggle sometimes when you are anxious, but you will progress. You're not going to be stuck like this, because everything changes, and it's important to see the patterns that come and go in your mind, because I remember this quote, I think it's a quote by Buddha: the mind that perceives the limitation is the limitation. So if you think that you're anxious and you constantly identify with being an anxious human being, then you're gonna attach that belief to you and believe it even more. And it's not to say that you should completely disregard the fact that you do have an anxiety issue, if you want to call it that. But you should say, okay, yes, I am anxious. That's fine. But I'm not an anxious person all the time. I'm still great. I'm still awesome. I'm still funny. I'm still interesting. I am worthy. So yeah, just the mind that perceives the limitation is the limitation. If you're saying I'm anxious all the time, you'll start to believe it. If you think you're inferior to other people, you'll start to believe it. It will start to become your reality because you're so invested in that belief system. Lastly, I believe this is really important, is talking to yourself. Like I said before, if you can't really have self-talk when you're out in public, that's okay. But you can still facilitate that same sort of self-talk if you step away from the situation for a while, or even if you're in the situation, just try to focus on it and do your best to be really mindful of the thoughts that you're creating in your head about your anxious situation. What I've been doing with my exposure therapy, like I said earlier, was just going out of my way to introduce myself to people, create a conversation. That's been working. It doesn't work with everybody, but I try not to get down on the people who aren't reciprocating with me, because it's always going to be a pretty obvious thing that happens with some people. You'll get some people who will talk, and then you'll get some people who won't really be that interested in conversation. Yeah. Aside from that, I tend to talk to myself. When this happens, I tend to reiterate the thought and then try to let it go. Kind of in the same sense that you do when you're starting out meditation and the thoughts start evading your consciousness, and it's not the thought that you really want to have. You don't try to force it out. You don't try to tell it to just get the fuck out. You just let it happen. You feel it, and then it just cascades. It just tapers off into the distance, and you don't even know what happened before. So I'm trying to do that. I'm trying not to repeat this like pull of thoughts. I'm trying my hardest to explain this, but I don't know if it's making sense. I hope it's making sense. And yeah. So aside from that, when I'm doing that, when I'm having a moment where I'm talking to myself and trying to coach myself out of these negative, anxious thoughts, I create a separate voice. I tend to, how do I explain this? I look at my thought from a different perspective. It's almost like I'm removing the I from it and looking at it through a third-person perspective, or a second-person perspective, I guess. So the thing that helps the most is, instead of saying to myself, why are you thinking this? You shouldn't be thinking this. Stop thinking this. Stop thinking this. I say, okay, you have an anxious thought. It will go away. Just feel it. Acknowledge it. But don't do anything else. Just accept it. And when you do that, you're not necessarily resisting it. You're still saying hello to it. You're still saying, hey, what up, anxious thought? How are you doing? Oh, anxious? Okay. Well, guess what? You're going to go away. Peace. So that's what happens. And when I do that, and I'm sure when anybody else who has anxiety practices this technique, they will notice that the thought might not go away in that instant. And it might repeat. It may come back later on. But it really helps to not place too much emphasis on the I in the situation.